On a warm evening in June 1950, Times Square buzzed with the usual sounds of honking taxis, bustling crowds, and neon lights flashing above the busy streets. At 11:15 p.m., however, something unusual happened. Something that would leave everyone who witnessed it utterly baffled for years to come. A man appeared suddenly in the middle of the street. There was no gradual approach, no sign of him seconds before. It was as if he had materialized out of thin air. Dressed in outdated clothes, he looked wildly out of place against the backdrop of the modern world. He wore a high-colored coat, waistcoat, and a top hat, fashioned straight from the late 19th century. He looked around, wide-eyed, as if he had no idea where he was. His bewilderment only increased when he noticed the towering skyscrapers, bright lights, and the roar of the 20th century all around him. Before anyone could comprehend what was happening, the man stepped into traffic, and in an instant he was hit by a speeding taxi. The scene quickly descended into chaos. Several witnesses rushed over to help, but it was too late. The man was killed on impact. Police officers soon arrived, trying to make sense of what had just occurred. The man's appearance was strange enough, but what came next would only deepen the mystery. When the authorities searched his body, they found items that seemed impossibly old. He carried a copper token, bearing the name of a saloon no one had heard of, and a business card identifying him as Rudolph Fentz. The card listed an address in the city, but one that didn't exist anymore. His pockets also contained a letter postmarked from 1876, and strangely, the paper seemed just as fresh as if it had been mailed that very day. There were no identification papers, no modern currency, no sign of anything that could place the man in the year 1950. At first, the police assumed the man had wandered off from some kind of historical reenactment or costume party, but as the hours passed, no such explanation surfaced. The circumstances were too odd to ignore, and soon enough, an investigation began. Detective Hubert Ream, a seasoned investigator with the New York Police Department, took a particular interest in the case. The mystery of Rudolph Fentz was unlike anything he had encountered before, and something about it gnawed at him. He couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just some tragic accident involving a man dressed in period clothing. There was something more to it, something that didn't fit. Ream began by tracking down the clues found on Fentz's body, starting with the business card. After scouring city directories, old records, and archives, Ream discovered something peculiar. The name, Rudolph Fentz, was indeed listed in a New York City address book, but from 1876. The address, however, no longer existed. The building had been torn down decades ago, and no one in the area knew anything about a man named Rudolph Fentz. Perplexed, Ream dug deeper, searching through old census records, property deeds, and city logs from the late 1800s. After weeks of poring over dusty documents, he found a breakthrough. There had been a man named Rudolph Fentz who lived in New York in the 1870s. According to the records, Fentz was reported missing one evening in 1876. He had left his house for a walk after dinner, as he often did, but he never returned. His family searched for him for weeks, but no trace of him was ever found. It was as if he had vanished without a trace, and eventually the case was closed, marked as an unsolved disappearance. The further Ream delved into the case, the stranger it became. The photograph attached to Fentz's old missing persons report matched the appearance of the man killed in Times Square. It was a perfect match, down to the clothes he had been wearing when he vanished. Ream couldn't believe it. How could a man disappear in 1876 and reappear, looking exactly the same, in 1950? And why had he seemed so disoriented, as if he had no idea where or when he was? Ream entertained various theories, some more plausible than others. Perhaps Fentz had been involved in some elaborate hoax, or maybe it was a case of mistaken identity, but none of the explanations fit the facts. The letter from 1876 in Fentz's pocket, the out-of-date currency, and his sheer confusion at his surroundings, it all pointed to something far more bizarre than Riem wanted to admit. Determined to uncover the truth, Riem tracked down living relatives of Fentz. After several dead ends, he found an elderly woman who claimed to be Fentz's great-granddaughter. She confirmed that the family had long been haunted by the mysterious disappearance of Rudolph Fentz in 1876. The story had been passed down through generations, and no one ever knew what had happened to him. When Riem showed the woman a photo of the man killed in Times Square, she gasped. It was unmistakably her great-grandfather, the man who had gone missing nearly 75 years earlier. She couldn't explain it any more than Riem could. As the investigation progressed, it became clear that there were no easy answers. Every lead pointed back to the same impossible conclusion. Rudolph Fentz had somehow traveled through time, from 1876 to 1950. But how and why? The case grew cold, with no further clues or developments. Riem, though deeply unsettled, eventually had to move on to other cases. Over the years, the strange tale of Rudolph Fentz became an urban legend, whispered about by conspiracy theorists and time travel enthusiasts alike. Some speculated that Fentz had stumbled upon a rip in the fabric of time itself, a portal that had flung him from one century to another. Others believed he had been the subject of a secret government experiment, his memory erased and his body dumped into the modern world. Though no concrete evidence ever emerged to prove that Fentz was a time traveler, his story lived on in the annals of unsolved mysteries. To this day, there are those who believe that time travel is not only possible, but that it has already happened, and that Rudolph Fentz is proof. In the end, the case of Rudolph Fentz remains one of the most perplexing and unexplained incidents in modern history. Whether he was a victim of some bizarre cosmic event, or a hoax too intricate to unravel, his appearance in Times Square on that fateful night continues to defy explanation. Even Detective Riem, long retired, could never shake the memory of the man in the old-fashioned clothes, the man who shouldn't have existed in 1950. In quiet moments, he would find himself thinking back to the case, wondering if there was some piece of the puzzle he had missed. Some clue that could finally explain what had really happened to Rudolph Fentz. But the truth, it seems, may forever remain just out of reach, lost somewhere between the years of 1876 and 1950.